Hello, Brookland-Cayce family and visitors. My name is Lin Summers, and I graduated from here in 1975. And I'm here today to give a tour we call the Ghost Tours of the Spirits of Brookland-Cayce. And I'm going to show the students this year, and hopefully the students in the future, because I'm not going to be around forever, they'll know what's going on at Brookland-Cayce High School and what the past has led to this future and their legacy, that you know that a time in life comes when it's important to know where you came from and where you're headed. And our motto is enter to learn, go forth to serve. So I am still serving at Brookland-Cayce High School even after all these years. My father actually graduated from here in 1934. It was the second graduating class. And every decade until I retired in 2019, we had a family member here at Brookland-Cayce High School. That is why I hold most of the legacies and most of the history, believe it or not, of what's gone on in this high school for the past decades. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy this tour. Spirits of Brookland-Cayce High School. They have been passed down from generations, and let me tell you, generations. How many of y'all had family members that went to BC High School? Well, they graduated, no, I'm not gonna get that, but they went. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. From the time the school opened, my dad was the second graduating class, and from the time they opened this school, he was in this building, and then after him, it was aunts, uncles, cousins, my sisters and brothers, my children, me, all us, my husband, everybody. We had somebody here until I retired in 2019. All those decades, there was some Connor or Summer in this building all those times. So that's where I pull from, as these different stories came passed down through family and generations to tell you about BC High School. You are standing in the original building. There is a basement underneath, which you might know or not know. If you got trouble, maybe don't. But there's some stories about that down there too. And I'm gonna tell you this, there's some visuals to go with it, and we'll get to those at the point of that. Miss Bowers is coming up, and I taught next to her mama for years, and she's near and dear to me. I still think about her. But what I want you to get from this today, hopefully, is that you learn something about BC High School, and you take more pride in where you're at and what you're doing. And the enter to learn, go forth to serve, which is our motto. I'm still serving, is what I told him outside. I'm still serving. My thing is that you need to enter this school with the attitude that I can do better, I can be better, and I can serve better other people. Because your life is very hollow if you don't reach out to others. Now, they're filming this today because I'm old. And one day I will not be able to do this anymore. And we have tried this before with other people and it has not worked. So I'm counting on Paxton to get this done, because I do want this legacy to carry on through the years. All right, in the main hallway here, exactly the same it was when it opened. It did have a fallback though. In 1990 in July, there was a fire here at Brookland-Cayce High School. And it burned the second floor and all the way down. And we thought that we'd lost the school. And I was a stay-at-home mom with 2 kids and one in a stroller. And we pulled down here because I needed to see my school. I came from my house on K Avenue, pulled down here to see my school. And I watched the people that had graduated from here out crying. I witnessed teachers that were upset that were here, administration, all that. And at that moment, I kept thinking, here are my children. They're 8, 10, and newborn. And they may not get to be at the school that their grandfather went to. And it really kind of hit me at that moment of, this does mean something to me. I've been away from it since 75, and this was 1990, but it did mean something to me. And I guess that's why I came back and started teaching here in 96, was that I really felt the pull to come back. So even if right now you're thinking, I just want to get out of here, I get that. But there is a time that you're going to reach back and say, that was important, I need to do that, and I need to be a part of that. Just this past week, one of my former students passed away, and I went to the funeral. And what did my heart good was the people that got him talking about him were all his BC friends. And they talked at 36 years old how he changed their life, and I thought, there's your legacy. There's your legacy. Now, he didn't care about school. I taught him 3 times. He just liked to be in my classroom, so I taught him 3 different times. But my thing was that they got up and they saw what I saw, that he was just a good person. So hopefully you've met some good friends here that would carry on through the years, and you'll enjoy the school also. The girls' gym when I was here. Before that, it was called the small gym, and it went back in 1932 when the school opened. It was the only gym, let's just say that. It was a boxing gym, though. They built it for boxing. That was a big sport. And as you can see, any of y'all that have ever played a sport and know that there's out of bounds, when the girls played and the boys played basketball in here, there was no room for stands. Your parents did not come watch you play. Your parents were out making a living. You got to remember, it's right after the Great Depression. And so parents did not come and participate in sports. If you did sports, you did them because you wanted to do them, not for them. You didn't do it for the glory of my mom and daddy stamping, screaming, and yelling. You did it for that reason. So this is what I think about this gym, is that it has lots of memories. They also had their proms here, or what they call the senior dance or whatever back then. But they had those here, and they would decorate it. And it held a lot of memories, and this is where a lot of things happened, because this was the place that the sports that were important to them, the dances that were important, they were held in this gym. Behind those netting right there and up those stairs, I don't know if y'all know this, but there are 3 rooms up there. And you'll see in the picture we got right there, you can go ahead and show the picture, and they can walk by and look at it while we're in here, and then you can put it down. As you see, this is this building right here. Okay, everybody see that? There's a reason for this. The story goes, and it was passed on by me, there was a janitor here in the 1950s, and his son would come and help him clean up in the afternoons. He was a black gentleman, and of course his son was black, and the son went to Ida Abel School, which is in Cayce. It's kind of near, now there's a church built on it, because I went to the funeral for another student at that church on it. It used to be the Boys and Girls Club, but that was the school for the black community. But he would come over in the afternoon and help his dad clean up. Well, the girls' basketball team practiced during that time. And there was of course, it was black and white then, so this is the white school. And of course, the curiosity there was that there was a young lady that was interested in his world, and he was interested in her world, because they were kept separate. And they would go upstairs, and I know y'all gonna think, we know what they're doing. But no, they were just upstairs because they couldn't be seen together. The daddy had already told him that he was just there to clean, and that was it. But they would go upstairs above this school, right in those rooms right there. And there's one particular room they knew to go to, and you'll see that in the picture. And they would visit and talk, and they would ask questions about each other's lives. And they realized there wasn't that much difference. The only difference was he was black and she was white. But they had the same interests. Their families bugged them too, just like everybody else. They had to work and have chores, and they were talking about different things. But they were just so interested in each other. Well, the daddy found out that the son was up there. He called him, and he said, "That's it. You can't come back here again." He said, "Something's going to happen to you because you don't do that in this town. There's lynch mobs. There's all these horrible things that could happen, and I can't afford that to happen to you." And so the son was very sad that he no longer could visit or be friends with her or whatever, and she's felt the same way when that happened. Her parents obviously didn't find out, but his daddy cut that off. Well, it was told, the story was that they decided that they weren't going to live in a world that they couldn't be friends. And they decided that they were going to be friends one way or another, this world or another next. And up in that room, it was told and passed on, believe it or not, that they hung themselves out of friendship for each other. They didn't want to live in a world they couldn't be friends. Okay? Now, we've heard different versions. We heard that he just hung himself. Then there's another version that she just hung herself. Then there's the two did. And then there was talk about the KKK. Everybody knows what the KKK is. That they had gotten him and taken him and hung him up on, but that couldn't be true because they wouldn't hide it. They dragged down the road and hang up in a tree and want everybody to see. So we kind of felt like that wasn't a true version of that story. But they did not want to live in a world that they couldn't do what they wanted to do and be with each other. And they just thought that was so wrong, even in the 1950s. And the weirdest part was, years later, somebody gave me that picture because I am the BC Diva. And they said, "Well, isn't that a pretty picture of BC?" And I said, "Yes, it is." And then I started looking at it, knowing the story that I just told y'all. And there's a window. When you come back, you will see it. And there is light coming out of the window rather than being just a reflection. It's like beams coming out of that window right there in this building. And to me, it meant there's better things ahead, and their friendship really does live on. And they're at a place now that they can be friends, and nobody judges anybody. And so that's the reason that picture meant so much to me. Now, other people just thought, that's a nice picture of BC High School. But I knew the story behind that version of that. This room, I brought a class of 1962, which has a legacy marker right here. We'll talk about legacy markers in a little bit. But I brought them down here, and I learned from them that this was the shop class. This was like carpentry, and all that was down here in this part. And when my brother was here, he graduated in 66. When he was here, it was the big canteen. In other words, this was where you went rather than go eat lunch in the cafeteria. If you wanted junk food, this was your place, okay? And they would enter from this, come down this way and come in, because usually that door was locked because of the other buildings over there. But down here, this has been many things. It's been a fitness room. It's been an ROTC shooting gallery, because that's gone now, but they used to come in here and shoot at targets down here. But the thing that I think makes this so interesting is that we got a rock. And they built the school around the rock. So this foundation is very strong. All right, Ms. Dunhall, where are you at? Would you like to come up and tell them what happened when I went through?
The first tour that any of my classes ever did with Ms. Summer was digital multimedia, so we had people recording it. And so anyway, Ms. Summer was doing her presentation, and she shut this door, and I'm going to shut it just for effect.
Okay.
I don't know, they don't do it again. But on the recording that my students got, and totally unaware, Ms. Summer was totally unaware, the door handle turned, and the door opened. What? And I almost fainted.
Yes, and I just told her she's got it on an old laptop, it's not working, and that's what we were talking about up there, because I'm going to tell her to take her laptop to access videos, Eddie Stroud, and see if he can pull that footage off, because that would be phenomenal. Speaking of that, teaching in the school for as many years as I did, sometimes I actually would not be here the next day. And I was one of those teachers that made sure I had plenty of stuff for my kids to do. So I was upstairs one time in the north wing, upstairs, and I heard some noise in the hall. And I knew nobody was supposed to be in there because school was out a couple hours ago. So I walk out, and when I walk out, I look down the hall, and I feel this rush of air come through, and I thought, somebody just ran by really fast and I didn't see them, or something's going on in this building today that I don't know about. The door slammed at the end, and these doors, I don't know if they still are, but they used to be magnetic. When they shut, you really couldn't open them back up. So the door slammed at the end while I was out there, and I thought, what is this about? So I went back in and didn't think any more about it. I was getting busy doing stuff and getting things ready. And I left that night and didn't think about it. Well, when I came in on Monday, the kids had said something had happened in my room. And I thought, okay, what's going on? Come to find out, in the notes that the sub had left, she said that there were some signs that had been pulled off the wall when she walked in. They were on the floor. And one was saying, well, because I taught sex education and health and all that good stuff. They said, drugs do you. And so that sign was down. And then there was another sign of some other thing that was related to STDs, you know, something. And that was down. It was weird how just two posters were down. And I said, that's okay, they weren't torn up, I'll put them back up. Well, every time I seemed to try to put them back up, the next thing you know, they came down. I even used liquid nail. I don't know if y'all know what liquid nail is, on a caulking gun, and that way, they still came down. We decided that the janitor that I'm going to tell you about in a little bit, not the janitor with the son, but the first janitor here, I'm going to tell you about him. And I really think that he didn't like to think that kids had sex or that kids did drugs. So instead, in my room, he wanted to take those posters down because that was insinuating that the students at BC High School were promiscuous. And I was like, well, I'm going to take it at that. And we laughed about how that sign would put them up. And the kids on Friday would put double tape on them and stuff. It was like got to be an old deal and thing. I was like, y'all, they come in on Monday morning, come in and smell that door, they look to see. And it went on for quite a while. So that's one of the stories about you never know who's watching, who's listening, or what's going on. But what she just told you about is one of the things that I'm not surprised. I wasn't the least bit surprised when she said that, because it's an old building, number one, but it also has lots of spirits in it. And most of them do it. You see this little cutout here? Is there a cutout over there too?
Yeah.
Well, when you came to BC High School in the, I guess it was in the 40s, you had to get a ticket, of course, to come in and watch the football games, because the football field, not this football field, but another football field which was angled this way, had concrete bleachers on this side and terrible bleachers for the visitors, of course. But they would come and get their tickets. This was the home side. If you were going to pull for Brookland-Cayce, you got your ticket from there. If you were them other people, you got your ticket from over there. So that's the visitor side. And that's why they're there, in case you didn't know why those were there, or you never even cared why they were there. That's the reason. And if you notice something, I don't know, there used to be, and we're gonna see them, and y'all probably seen them around school, they're called legacy markers. Have you seen like dates on the floor and stuff? Well, we don't go by and I'll tell you about some of them that I know personally what's going on. But most of them have got, that's what their class left. Like, y'all are gonna be the class of 2025, okay, or 6 or 7. Some of y'all wanna stay a little bit longer. Anyway, you would actually give something to the school. That's what that's about. Your class leaves something for you to be remembered by. So when you walk by these things in school and you see these numbers and dates on them, that's a legacy marker from those people who came through here. And there's one that's near and dear to my heart, which is in the main stairwell right there by the main staircase, and it's a bear cat out of tile. And the year they came back to go through the school to see that change, that's the first thing that class asked me. They said, is our marker still there? Because one of the students designed it. And I said, yes, it's still there. Because some of them don't stay. There was one here that said the cage, and it's gone. I think it was in 1990, I think is what it was. But it's gone. So sometimes they'll say, mine, class of 75, we had a athletic marker that told what events were going on in the school, and that was in the front part of the big gym. And when they added on to the big gym to give that little area where you go in and get your refreshments and all that, they took that down and it was gone. So we don't know what happened to it, but it's no longer there. So there's no guarantee it'll stay unless you make it a permanent marker where they can't remove it. And they have saved some of them when they redid the concrete out front. Y'all come in that front door, y'all know that there's 2 of them there. I saw when I walked in today. 1992 and I think 1962, and I think there's a 1930 something out there too. There's 3 of them. And those are there again, they're the legacy markers. They're saying what's going on at the school. This, you gotta remember, BC High School was just this building right here. So turn around and look, that stick out building there was not there, okay? Just this part was the original school and was until the mid-50s. And they started adding on to the school then. But for 20-something, 30-something years, that was it, okay? Well, my dad told this story, and I thought, okay, Daddy, I've always believed all your stories, so okay. And I wasn't real sure about it because one of those things, he'd gotten older in life, and we were sitting at a ball game back when the softball field was on this side and baseball field was on this side. We were sitting in the stands watching both, and he said, you know what, Lee, this field is not famous for what's going on now. I said, okay. And he said, it's famous because Amelia Earhart landed her biplane on it. And I said, do what? And he said, Amelia Earhart. I said, Daddy, come on now. And he said, I promise you that in 1934, in October, she landed her plane. I think it was 1932, excuse me. 1932, in October, she landed her biplane in this field that we are looking at right now. And I said, why did that happen? He said, well, she was collecting money to make her trip that she goes around the world. Y'all know who Amelia Earhart is, right? She didn't make it back, but she was here one time. Anyway, she was raising money, and on the side of her biplane had Wrigley's. That was her sponsor. Wrigley gum, Wrigley spearmint gum, that was her sponsor. He said she got out, she pulled out the plane, she landed, and she got out. He said she had that little leather helmet on, and she was eating a big red apple. He said, that's what I remember about her. He said, at that point, you got to remember, she hadn't done anything really famous. She was just a female aviator. That was about as famous as she was. He said, but she got out, and the reason she came, because we were a brand new high school, and she wanted to see what it looked like. So this was her little trip over here from Columbia. Well, years went by. I've told that story to many a student. But right before, I think it was like maybe 10 years ago, Owens Field was fixing to be redone. Y'all know where Owens Field is? It's kind of over there behind the state fairgrounds, back over in that way. And they were fixing to redo their hangar in that area. And it hadn't been redone in a long time. I'd probably say probably 75, 80 years. And they were going through some documentation that they had, which is flight documentation. When people flew in or flew out of there, they had to write it down. Well, in October of 1932, Amelia Earhart's name was on that paper, and that she had been in Columbia at that time. And then I thought, my daddy must have been telling the truth. I knew he never really lied to me, so I was thinking it must have been true because she was in Columbia. I got documentation, and I had the newspaper for a while to prove to kids that she was in Columbia, and she came over here to see what this school was about because it was a brand new school. So that makes us very unique and valuable. I don't know many schools that have had Amelia Earhart land in their backyard. Do y'all? Well, that's a true statement, and I want y'all to know that. Okay, this was called the cage of mine, and it was a football player, and they were going to move the goalpost, and they picked it up, and when they did, the guide wires, the electricity that goes across the field, got hit by the goalpost. There was 13 of them on the goalpost. The coaches started diving at the goalpost to knock the players off. If you know electricity, if you grab it, it holds you there. So anyway, diving after them, they knocked off 12 players, and he was the last one on. His name is Eddie Derenbacher, and he lost his life on this field out here. And to this day, and I was a sophomore in high school then, and they came by my house afterwards, a couple of the other football that weren't in the accident, and they were talking, and it was awful. It was an overcast day like this, I'll never forget, in September, and to think somebody lost their life here. Well, later on, the stories were that he still looks over the athletes at BC High School. And there used to be a guy named Mr. Harvey, Coach Harvey, that was our athletic trainer. He swore that one night, and he wasn't anybody to cut up at, he went to the Citadel, he's about as straight laced you got, that one night he was in the big gym over there, not the arena, but the gym, and he saw a football player in uniform, had their pads on and stuff, and it was springtime, and it was illegal to have them on before a certain time. So he goes out there to yell at the guy for having his pads on. He said, when I went to yell at him, said he was gone. And he said, Miss Summers, if you ever tell this to anybody while I'm still here, he said, I'll call you a liar. And I said, okay, well now he's not here, he's at Dutch Fork, so I can tell his story. So anyway, he told me that he actually feels like he witnessed Eddie Derenbacher here. The good news is, from this point on, there has not been another student lose their life at our school, and I think he looks over us for that. So he lives on, and one time I was telling the story, and his niece was in my class. So it was like she went home, told her mom, and her mama was thrilled to know that we still talk about her son, and it's all good things. So I don't know if your key works on that. Does it?
It should.
Okay. Well, before we go down there, I want to give you a little just, because when you get down there, you might not want to go in, you might want to go in. That's up to you. You don't have to go in. But this is where Arthur Brown lived. He was the janitor at BC High School. And what he did, back when it was just this building, remember, he would either open the windows, there were no air conditioners, open the windows every day, or he would, I don't miss that at all, or he would cut the radiators on. The radiators are the thing that generate the heat. He had to get that going. So he lived here because he had no other family. And he actually lived, and he had a room off to the side, and you'll see it. And he passed away in 1948, I believe, around that time. And he died of natural causes, but he died down there. They came to school one morning and couldn't find him because he was always there to greet the teachers and all that. They went down and they found he had passed away. And we just lost one of our janitors that was there when I was in high school, and he just passed away, Mr. Beatty. And he would talk about Arthur Brown. He knew him. So anyway, when I tell these stories, Mr. Beatty loved to follow me around. But anyway, he actually keeps up the school, and I thought about him later on. I was doing cheerleaders here, and we had a trust fall going on, or a trust tour or something. Anyway, and the girls were walking around, and And all of a sudden, one of my cheerleaders said, Miss Summers, and this was nighttime. We were having like a 3-day camp here, staying in the chemistry lab, which was probably very dangerous, but we didn't pay attention to that. But we walked out here, and all of a sudden, we were way over there on that side, walking around. And all of a sudden, they said, there's a light on in that building. Well, nobody's supposed to be here in July at night. So I called the Cayce cops, or as I like to call them, Cayce Gestapos. Anyway, Cayce cops. And they came, and one of them, of course, the guy that came graduated with me. Paul Petings was his name. And he came, and they went through the building, couldn't find anybody. They went all the way through it, came back out and said, I don't know what happened, maybe just there was a short or something, but there's nothing going on. You're good. Okay. We go around the front, and there's a story I'm going to tell you later that's got to do with auditorium. But we walked around there so I could tell them that story, and a light came on in a different room. Well, that was it. I called back Cayce cops, called the principal, and I said, that was Mr. Boland at that time, and I said, something's going on, and we need a police officer posted here. I just want somebody to stay here, so I don't have to worry about it anymore. So they sent somebody back, and they had 2 police officers, one in the front, one in the back, staying. They went through the building again, couldn't find anybody, and one of the girls turned to me and said, Miss Summer, I bet that's Arthur Brown. He's probably taking care of us and making sure we're going to be okay. So he's checking all the rooms. And I said, good point. So that's what we went with, even though we didn't know. But they never did find anybody. So we're assuming that he was just checking the building like he always did and taking care of things. That was Mr. Arthur Brown. If you would like to see Arthur Brown's room down here, you are more than welcome to go down there, Paxton. You go unlock the door and let them have that. Of it. Y'all be as you can see, it's a catch-all. Now it looks like theater, I believe, if I'm guessing it's theater. But it has been, like I said, it was like the seniors had a separate canteen from everybody else back in the 60s. So that was cool. It was like a privilege, a rite of passage that you didn't have to eat with the lowly underclassmen. So they would come down here, and this is where they had their canteen. And it was student-led, student-handled, ordering the food, whatever it was, they had complete control of that, and they took care of it, and they made a profit, and the profit went for their senior prom and for their legacy marker. So that's what they did with the money that they made. It has been a fitness room for the faculty. We used to have ellipticals down here and good stuff. And also it was a computer room at one time, and I think it was a study hall room in the late 90s. I believe it was a study hall room, which with this odor and all that, who cares? One time some of my students, because I did teacher cadets back in the day, wanted to go up and see what was going on. There's like they wanted to see how it was looked underneath the building. And so they tried to go from this way, and they found they couldn't. But you used to could go in the auditorium. I'll show you. They've closed it off now, I guess, because we all went through it and did all that. But there was an escape route that was built back in the day that we were way ahead, high tech, about if the school ever got hostages in here, there was a way to get in the building without coming through the doors. And I'll show you that when we go into the auditorium if we're not disrupting a class. Okay, we're all in here. This auditorium was the opposite of the gym. Gym was the first part of the building, the auditorium was the last part of the building. So there was nothing out here, and I'm going to explain something about that in a little bit. But this is also, it was the 1930s, it was where you graduated. My father graduated from here in 1934. He was the second graduating class. And when he graduated, like I said, parents didn't come to stuff back then. They were working. So there might have been a few parents here, but mostly it was just the other students that were in the building. And his class had 25 students in it total. So you think about one room in your classroom, that would be your whole graduating class. So think about it that way. You got a class of 25, that's it. Well, the year they were graduating, of course, 1934, they all had a class ring that was exactly alike. So it wasn't like now that you get to order the ring you want. It was a black onyx with a gold palm tree, or palmetto, and it had the year on it. And then, of course, it had engraved your initials. And those rings cost about $20 back then. Of course, now y'all know that rings are in the hundreds, let's just say that. Okay, well, everybody had saved up their money in pennies, nickel, dime, quarter. Daddy said everybody had the money ahead of time to get a ring, so except one girl. And her nickname was Tookie. Her last name was Pigler. and I taught her great nephews, so they loved the story. But anyway, she didn't have a ring because like my dad said, we were poor. They lived in a home, they were poor, but said her family was in worse shape than that, and she just didn't make a big deal about it. But she couldn't afford a ring. Well, the class got together. My dad was vice president of his class, and they got together and decided that they would try to come up with the money. So between the teachers and the friends bringing in money, they had enough money to buy her a ring. So that day that they graduated and walked across the stage, on her diploma that was rolled up was her class ring. And that meant so much to her that her classmates thought of her that way and were willing to give up. And she knew they had to give up stuff to be able to give even a quarter or a dime or whatever towards getting her a ring. Well, they sized the ring by another girl in the class, and the ring was a little bit big, but it still was priceless to her. And that day, after they got through graduating, the teachers put on a reception. You got to remember, it's 25 people. So they had, if y'all ever been to a funeral and they got those tents, over the grave that they dug? Okay, that was what was out here. Thompson Funeral Home provided the tent. It was right outside this building on the ground, and they had sawdust, which y'all know that comes off when you cut something, that the sawdust falls off. They had put sawdust on the ground because it was all dirt, so they wouldn't mess up their nice Sunday outfit and all that. So they had that on the ground. They had cookies, lemonade, and that's pretty much what they had for their big reception. Well, they were out there amongst everybody, and everybody was, saying their goodbyes to each other, because some of them were going to the military, some of them were going to work, some of them were just moving on. Their family was waiting for them to graduate and move, so they figured that class would never be back together again. So they spent a lot of time together, because that was really their last time to be the class of 1934, all intact. Well, she stayed after at the end, and my dad was out there trying to help him clean up everything, and she came up to him, and my dad's nickname was Speck. His real name was Marshall Dreer, but they called him Speck because he had freckles all over his face. But anyway, my mama's name was Dot, so he had Dot and Speck. That's a whole other issue. But anyway, he was out there and cleaning up and helping them get stuff out and helping the teachers, and she walked up to him and said, "Speck, can I talk to you?" And he was like, "Sure." And she said, "I can't find my ring." And she had lost it. It had slipped off her finger because I told y'all earlier, plus it was summertime. I guess they were sweating. It was hot outside, no air conditioning. And she couldn't find it. So they started looking through the sawdust for the ring. Didn't find it out here. They came back in the building and they looked around in here for it for hours. And they said they never found it. But she was so upset, and she didn't want the other classmates to know that she had lost it, and it meant so much to her. So, needless to say, they didn't find it at that time, but they were hoping at some point the janitorial staff, Arthur Brown or somebody, would find it and return it to her. So she checked periodically about that. 10 years later, she passed away from tuberculosis. That's a lung disease. And they say to this day she comes back in this building looking for her ring. Now, I'll be perfectly honest with you. Mr. Beatty, that just passed away, we called him Beatty. His real name was Mr. Shivers. He heard me telling this story. Now, he just had his visitation here Sunday, and he was 90 years old, but he worked up here till 2019 when I retired. Till 5 years ago, he still worked at BC High School. He was here when I was a student. But he came in and he heard me doing exactly what I'm doing right now. I was telling the students the same thing, and he walked in and he said, "Miss Summers." And I said, "Yes, Mr. Shivers." He said, "I want to tell you something." He said, one night I was in here after the Miss Bearcat pageant, and I thought, "Yes, sir." And he said, I was, cleaning up, getting those little papers off the floor that had all that stuff written in it. And he said, I was cleaning up and said, I went to go cut out the lights. And when I cut out the lights, all of a sudden, all the lights came back on. And I said, "Mr. Shivers, do you think that was Miss Peekler looking for her ring?" He said, "I don't know, but I got out of there." So he witnessed a moment of oopsie. Now, people in the theater group have, through the years, have said they have felt presences back there in that box back there. They've had moments that they felt like somebody was watching them, or something cold breeze come by them, or whatever it was, that they felt that moment of they were being watched. But I always say that was the moment that she actually still cared about, the fact that her friends cared that much about her, and she wishes that she had had that ring. Now, for me, I just think that it says that they bonded over their friendship. and that they were friends. And they got together about every 2 or 3 years, all the way through. They had their 50th anniversary, and I watched my mom and dad go to that, and it was down at the Swain Steakhouse, and I think there was 12 of them there by then. But I'm just saying that they were a close-knit bunch because of that kind of kindness. So I'm going to tell you right now, you're in a classroom with students that you'll graduate with and some you won't. And kindness is something that everybody can do. Everybody can be kind. You know, not everybody can be athletic. Not everybody can be as good looking as me. I know y'all ain't laughing about that. But anyway, but you can be kind. You can be nice to somebody. You don't want to be that person. I always told kids in ninth grade when they came in, when I told them they were unique and valuable, the next thing I would tell them was, when you graduate, how do you want to be remembered? I got my 50th coming up 25. And I always remember there's those people that were in class that you couldn't wait to see, that you look forward to in the morning. Y'all probably know exactly what I'm talking about. You can't wait to go to class because you get to hang out with them. They're your buds. They're the ones you want to hang out with. Then you got those people that, you wish they didn't come. Maybe they need to take a day off of school. You got people you hope that they're not in your class. And when you get your roster, and they walk in that first day and y'all in that class and that person walks in, you're like, oh, that person, you don't want to be that person. Y'all laughing, but y'all know what I'm talking about. I ain't telling you nothing you don't know. Also, there's that other person that gets probably I worry about the most. You don't even remember them. They're that person that just comes to school and leaves. They make no mark. They don't bother you, which is better than the person that bugs you that you don't want in the classroom, but they don't make their mark. They don't. But I will tell you, the people that I remember and look forward to seeing on my 50th are the ones that we were talking about were kind and were nice to each other. And we're talking about kindness, and that's something everyone can do. So that's what you need to take from Miss Peekler's story, is that the act of kindness starts at BC High School. It can. If it doesn't start anywhere else, you can start doing that right now. How do you want to be remembered? Do you want to be remembered as the person everybody goes, oh my God, he's in my class again, or she's in my class? Or do you want to be remembered as that person, hot dog, we're going to have a good year this year because this person's coming in my class. They're going to be in my class with me. So hopefully you'll think about that. I don't know if this is your senior year or your freshman year or whatever, but it doesn't matter. That carries on in life. That carries on through no matter what. You be that person that people look forward to seeing. That's what's important. That's what matters in the end. It really does. I might not have seen that coming out, but there's a thing on the corner of the Character Club, and it says, keep respect, back over there, and it said, keep clean. And I thought that was the nastiest place back there. They obviously didn't do it respect. Okay, I knew the young man that did this. His name was Bill Stroud. He actually went to church with me. He was a little bit older than I was. He graduated in that legacy marker, if you can see it on here. You might not, but there's a class of, right here in the corner, 68. So he graduated in 68. And this is what they left to the school. He worked on this all 4 years that he was at BC. They decided they wanted to commission him to actually do this. And his initials are right there. It says W. Stroud. His name was William, but he went by Billy. And his mama taught school at Saluda River. And his sister Emily graduated a few years. She graduated in 66. And the weirdest part about this whole thing, when I was younger, I was like, what in the world was that about? Egg crack and whatever. But now looking at it, after what all's gone on, does anybody see that building kind of crumbling and that cross? Mm-hmm. What does that kind of remind you of something that happened before y'all were born, I'm sure? 9/11? Somebody said that? Yes. To me, that's what that looked like. And I thought that was built, he did this in 68. You know, it's like a forethought. And then the three faces, do y'all see the three faces in the clouds? Okay, that's the past, the present, and the future. So that's what that represented. Because you know what I mean, I asked him, I was like, what does that mean? And I asked him about big ants. I said, why do you have big old ants on this thing? And he said that the ant's the hardest worker. Ants work hard and they can carry more than they weigh. They can carry a whole lot more than they weigh. So he was saying that insect's going to take over the world is what he thought. Well, sometimes they take over my backyard, the fire ants, they sure do. But anyway, that was that part. Industrial Revolution was back in this time, so that was going, and the cornfields, you see the corn stalks, that was kind of when it was going from being agricultural, moving into industries and that kind of thing. That's where the ironworks come in, the iron hammer and all that. And I love that he carried on his theme with the window of opportunity is up in the corner there. Y'all see the window of opportunity on that building? See the window? That's the window of opportunity. I'm proud that he had a cross there because we did go to church together. So at least he did include that. there was like, it looks like a bridge, and that's trying to bridge over the different things that are going on in the world and the chaos in the world. See the people running from the building? Yes, that definitely came to be fruition there, right there. And then it's also got the mountains and the sea, and to me that just says from coast to coast is what goes on in the world. So he took time out. I mean, it took 4 years. He started doing it in his 9th grade year to commission this. And I was always afraid. I tell you, legacy markers get taken down and get removed in something, but they did find a place to hang this. So I'm proud that it's still here and representing not only that class, but represents kind of life in general. It just kind of represents what goes on. Okay, look behind you. There's where they couldn't build. The reason this is here is because that's what they wanted to leave here. Guy Hornsby was the guy who actually designed it, and he was a big art student and all that. And the thing is that when I was in school and up till I retired, you didn't step on that, because that's like stomping on your mascot. Now, if that was an airport eagle, stomp away. I could care less. But it's a Bearcat. And the thing was, you showed respect to the Bearcat and you showed respect to your school. You walked around that. Now, do you guess there are some people that just went ahead and stepped on it because they're that kind of people? You know, those people we were talking about earlier that we didn't care about? Okay, the ones that act ugly? Well, they stepped on it. And you know what? Back in my day, when somebody stepped on it, there used to be a trash can right there, and there used to be a trash can right there, and there used to be one right there. And if they stepped on it, some big senior would grab them up and go and put them in the trash can. So it didn't happen very often. Y'all got me? There used to be some big football player sitting here that was waiting just for that moment to grab that underclassman that might not know the rules. I always tried to make sure my class that had a lot of freshmen knew the rules. But that's what they would do. But there is a way to escape that. You could walk around it backwards 3 times and say, I love BC. All's forgiven. Okay. That main staircase right there is famous for 1972. There was a sit-in. The black students here at Brookland-Cayce High School were not being respected. They were not having chances to be on student government, cheerleading, all those things. Oh, they could play football, but they couldn't be on anything else. That was just kind of not in student government, none of that stuff. So they had a sit-in, and what they did was they sat on the steps after lunch, very peaceful. They filled that steps up. Now, I was a freshman that year, and I got upset because I had a class upstairs, and there was no other staircases back then. There wasn't one down here like there is now. So the only way to get upstairs to your north wing room was that main staircase. Well, they blocked it. Of course, I was upset, and I thought, I got to get upstairs. I'll be in trouble. Stupid me, didn't realize nobody else was getting upstairs either, so it really wouldn't have been in trouble. But anyway, so there was a guy that lived in my neighborhood named Maxie Boyd. He was named Maxie for a reason. Maxie wrestled unlimited weight, which meant he was over 250 pounds. And he was a big fella. And he was not disrespectful, but he saw me upset. And he said, what's your problem? And I said, I got a class upstairs, Maxie. He said, you want to go upstairs? And I said, yes. He said, okay. He put me on his shoulders, and up the steps we went. And we were very respectful. He said, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. We went up, and they were fine with that. We went on up. I got up there, and I was the only one in class. And I thought, well, this is stupid. I should have just stayed downstairs. But anyway. But what I appreciated was that from that day on, they made a statement, and it wasn't in your face, but it was in your face, because it was saying, we deserve to be noticed. We are students here at BC High School, too. We get, and you know what? From that day on, we had a cheerleader, first cheerleader was one, Valerie Rowe was her name. We had many of them be in student government. It was amazing how things changed from that. It was a big aha moment for Brookland-Cayce High School to say the first students came in 68, but by 72, they were being treated with much more respect than they had been before. And I think that moment probably stands true in my life, to realize that you treat people like you want to be treated. So I'm going to leave you with that, besides the fact that you are unique and valuable, that please treat everybody with kindness and respect, and life will go a lot easier for you and for the people you're around. I appreciate y'all's attention today. Thank you.